Hi everyone, I have a first time spins video here for you. These are 3 albums that I've played for the first time each, and I'm here to give you my thoughts on them and whether I'm going to keep them, listen to them again, or whatever. And let's get right underway with this, shall we? The first one was a long time in coming. My friend George, he's a really good guy. George, Music for All Four Seasons. He's a big fan of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. I like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons myself. But he sent me a copy of this album, which I actually never heard of before and didn't know existed, and I'm glad I do now. The Genuine Imitation Life Gazette. And this was released in 1969 by the Four Seasons. And right away, you'll notice some familiarity about this kind of cover, which I will explain as I go along. All right, now George sent me 2 albums that he wanted to get my opinion on. This one I've listened to, and I'm going to present it in this particular chapter of this series. And the next time I do another one, I'll get to the second album that he sent me. That's the second album is not going to be featured in this particular installment. All right, now I got my notes all here ready to go. First of all, this is psychedelic concept album. Even though I say a concept album, not all the songs tie together as one thing. They're kind of individual topics. I thought that's what I got out of it. I played this album twice. One time on the turntable, and another time I actually did it through YouTube on the headphones when I was doing my morning walk. So I listened to it twice. It was so good the first time, I wanted to give it a second listen. So anyway, now, I don't know. This could be considered prog rock too. Maybe earlier prog rock. I first of all loved how experimental this was. It's very creative. I knew going into this was not your father's Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. You're not going to hear Ragdoll. You're not going to hear Sherry. You're not going to hear stuff like that. You're not going to hear Walk Like a Man. This is going to be different. And I really was kind of blown away by just how cool it was. Bob Gaudio and Jake Holmes were really responsible for this. And I heard there were a couple of singles released from here, but the singles didn't really do too well. Also heard, and some research I did, that John Lennon told Bob Gaudio this was one of his favorite albums. All right, and it could be true because this reminds one of Sometime in New York City album cover wise. It looks a lot like that same design. You got the newspaper here, and how cool is it that there's more than one page and the album is inside here, the record. Really cool. Really enjoyed that, and I have some songs listed down as to what I thought of them. I want to make sure I got all my notes here. This album has different sounds for the Four Seasons. Strings, horns. It sounds like it's kind of like from the Sgt. Pepper era, or maybe 67 or 68. Now, since this came out in January 69, it's still close to 68. In a way, I kind of would have felt better for the sound of this if it had been an album released in 67 or 68. But January 69 is close enough to those 2 years. All right, now, I found this consistently interesting. There was one song out of it that I wasn't wild about. I'll get to that in a minute. But consistently intriguing and interesting. And now the favorite songs I have on here. First we have Genuine Imitation of Life, which I enjoyed. I thought I noticed a Hey Jude sound at the end. Am I right? Let me know, listeners. My favorite song on here, I don't think it's everybody's favorite. I'll be willing to bet it's probably just an album track, but it was Mrs. Staley's Garden. That's my #1 favorite song on here. Just hit me right the first time, hit me even better the second time. There's a jazzy track on here I like called Something on Her Mind. And I also liked Soul of a Woman, which was really nice. A song called Saturday's Father that was kind of disturbing, depressing a little bit. Sounds like they're talking about a divorce and not being able to see the child, the father. So, Idaho, that's the one song here that I really wasn't wild about. And I heard that Idaho was the second single from this album. I guess, what do I know? But in a way I could see it, because the reason that I didn't like it was because it just sounded like the usual sound, the harmony sound that you're used to from the Four Seasons. It wasn't really different like the rest of it. Sounded like they would give it in, okay, let's just throw them a bone and do one that sounds like our usual Four Seasons stuff. So that's the only reason why I wasn't that thrilled with that song. And it was the second single that came out, so I guess, it is commercial enough, and that's what they were going for, I guess. But I didn't like it within the context of the whole album as much. But anyway, this is something that I thank George for, because I did enjoy it. And I knew that on the first listen, which doesn't always happen. And the second listen just reinforced it. This is a nice curio for the Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons fan. But for me personally, I still prefer their other stuff other than this. But this was really nice to step away from it and get something that was more in that vein of the psychedelia experimental. All right, next up we have an album here. I got it on CD from 2003, and it's called The Curse of Blondie. Curse of Blondie. All right, I really like Blondie. I especially love Eat to the Beat. Eat to the Beat is one of my all-time top albums by anybody. I love that album. I also love Parallel Lines, and I was a Blondie fan back in the day. Curse of Blondie, I think, first of all, overall, it's a good listen. I'll talk about some of the songs. Shakedown was like a rap song, and you have Debbie singing lines like, let me kiss it, let me lick it, which to me sounds a little bit too much for her age in here. It just seemed like an old chick trying to sing that. I don't know, but still, wasn't bad. A song called Good Boys, which is a good pop song, followed by another song called Undone, another up-tempo, good pop song. And then a song called Goldenrod, and Debbie sounded really good on Goldenrod. But as I'm listening to this, I'm aware you're talking about general upbeat techno pop rock. It's got heavy drums and guitar, and it sounds like the early 21st century, which it is, but yet it still retains the classic Blondie sound. So it's a nice hybrid for the Blondie fans from the days of old. But I gotta be honest with you, although I think this is good overall, I did find myself getting bored halfway through it. I was like, all right, I'm done with this now. So that's kind of funny. I did listen to the whole thing, but I just thought at 14 tracks, there's 14 songs on here, it overstayed its welcome. Maybe it's a little too long. Got tired of it after a while. But I was digging it for the first half anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna hang on to this. All right, the next one, the final one for this video, I don't have the record. I had the record, I played it, and I sold it. So I remember I was telling you I was purging records. That's one of the records I purged so far, and I have purged a few. A lot of people, I'm sorry, are going to shun this. It's by the Kinks. They're gonna shun my review. They're gonna like say, "Oh my God, I can't believe what this guy said about this." It's a Kinks album, but let me just tell you this: have no fear, because I'm going to do another Kinks album in the next video when I do this, and it has a better reception. And I'm talking about the album called, if I flip the page, I was going to call it the Village Green Preservation Society, but it's really the Kinks are, the Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society. It's a very well-renowned album, very liked, I believe, from 1968. Side one, when I played it, it was enjoyable enough. I thought it was, the whole thing was pretty enjoyable. I liked it right away, the first track. But then, even though I thought it was enjoyable enough throughout the first side, I didn't find any big standout for me. There was nothing there that I say, well, that leaps out to me. That's going to be a Kinks favorite of mine, Then I flipped the record over and I thought, what happened? I just did not enjoy one single song off the second side. First side was good. Second side was like, what happened? And there's a song in particular that I noted called Starstruck that was issued as a single, actually, really. And if I remember correctly, because this particular album has been like a few weeks since I've heard it, but I remember writing notes here that, they're saying Starstruck, Starstruck, Starstruck. As if they're desperately trying to come up with something for a song. And, yeah. So the worst song on the album was a song to me that I didn't like. Worst song called Phenomenal Cat. Didn't like Phenomenal Cat. And I like the Kinks in general. And when I say I like the Kinks, you know the story. I like the early Kinks, but not just the early Kinks. I like some of the Arista work. I like stuff like Low Budget, and stuff like Superman, Catch Me Now I'm Falling, uh, Destroyer, and stuff like that. And I even like 1983 stuff like Come Dancing, Don't Forget to Dance. So there's sporadic stuff here and there, but I guess this particular album just didn't grab me to listen to ever again, and I'm not going to. But I did better with the next one that I listened to, which I hope you'll wait for when I get to the video. Yeah, so Kinks wise, I'm gonna stick with what I know I like already, what I have. Earlier '60s stuff, mid '60s, and some tracks from like '70s and stuff like that I have on compilations. The songs we all know and love. Lola, 8 Man, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's it for this edition of First Time Spins. See you next time.